Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, Panie i Panowie, Slava Ukraini. My name is Yvan Baker. I'm the Member of Parliament for Etobicoke Centre, and I'd like to thank all of you for being here today at St. Demetrius Ukrainian Catholic Church here in Etobicoke Centre. I'd like to start by thanking Prime Minister Trudeau for being with us today to meet with members of the Ukrainian Canadian community. I'd also like to thank a few of my colleagues. First of all, Minister of National Defence Anita Anand. And several of my MP colleagues are here today, and I'd like to introduce them. James Maloney from Etobicoke Lakeshore. Arif Irani from Parkdale High Park. Peter Fonseca from Mississauga East Cooksville. And I'm looking for Kirsty Duncan from Etobicoke North. Where's Kirsty? There she is. So I just wanted to say a few brief words, and then I'll pass it over to the Prime Minister, if I may. Last week, Vladimir Putin started an unprovoked full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And I think the Ukrainian people have fought incredibly courageously, with great resilience, and I think that has inspired Canadians, and it's inspired people around the world. This is, of course, a threat to Ukraine's sovereignty as the Russian military continues to advance. It's a humanitarian crisis, with the Russian military shelling civilian positions, hospitals, apartment buildings, kindergartens, a nuclear power plant yesterday. But it's more than that, it's a threat to our global security. And so those Ukrainians who are fighting so courageously are not just fighting for their own freedom in their own homeland, but they're also fighting for all of us. And that is why it's so important that we fight for them. I can tell you that the MPs in the room, many MPs outside this room, have been fighting for them. And we've spoken many times with the Prime Minister, many times with Minister Anand, to advocate, to offer suggestions as to what Canada can do, along with our partners internationally. But the person who's been fighting and who's been leading that fight is Prime Minister Trudeau. And whether that's military support, I think all of you know about that, the lethal and non-lethal resources and other materials that we've provided to the Ukrainian military. Of course, the economic sanctions that have crushing economic sanctions, really, against Vladimir Putin and his regime and people around him and the central bank and much more. And of course, well over $100 million in humanitarian aid because there's millions of Ukrainians who are suffering. So, Prime Minister, I wanted to thank you for fighting. I wanted to thank you for your leadership. And I wanted to thank you for being here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvan. And I just want to start by thanking you once again for being such an extraordinary voice in our caucus, in our team, but also just in Parliament and in Canada, carrying the voice of Ukrainians through this. I first want to say I can't imagine what you and the entire community are going through right now. The mix of emotions, obviously a deep sense of sadness that this has come to this, rage that this is happening, mixed in with perhaps a little bit of pride that the entire world gets to see just how strong and courageous and resilient Ukrainians are, but such a deep sorrow that it had to come to this. What is happening is an incredible tragedy. A tragedy for the Ukrainian community, tragedy for Ukrainians all around the world, but also a tragedy for the world. And it was very much something that we didn't want to see happen, something that the world has been warned since Crimea. Since Crimea, Canada stepped up with Operation Unifier to help train up the Ukrainian military that is right now fighting like lions. We can give thanks to the Canadian armed forces who were there to help give them the tools to show the world what they're made of. The Canadian diaspora over the years has been connecting and building such deeper ties between Canada and Ukraine, whether it's a Canada-Ukraine free trade deal, whether it's increasing economic or cultural partnerships. Every year on the House of, in Parliament, the Ukrainian interns are everywhere, and an incredible sign of not just the connection, but the work we're doing together to build a better democracy, a better country, a better path forward in Ukraine, done by Ukrainians themselves. And the success of Ukraine over the past years in building this extraordinary country, this strength of pathway that is impressive. Well, that was a direct threat to Vladimir Putin's view of authoritarian and Russian dominance. And we've come to a moment that, quite frankly, we've seen coming over the past years. And we've talked about it in the news, not just about Ukraine, but about democracies around the world, that we see a bit of a slippage in our democracies. Countries turning towards slightly more authoritarian leaders. Countries allowing increasing misinformation and disinformation to be shared on social media, turning people against the values and the principles of democracies that are so strong. And that slippage over the years unfortunately emboldened Putin and made him think that he could get away with this, that he could get away with it in Ukraine. But what a terrible mistake he made in underestimating Ukrainians and underestimating the level to which democracies would stand and do what he never expected us to do, which is push back hard. But I will tell you, it wasn't automatic. There were a lot of places around the world that said, oh, it would be a real shame if Putin were to invade Ukraine. But in the back of their mind, we're thinking, well, he did that with Crimea, and we kicked him out of the G8, made it back to the G7. But other than that, there wasn't a really strong, clear pushback. And I can tell you that there were people wondering if this would be the same. Oh, maybe he'll just take the Donbass. Maybe he'll just come in a little ways. Maybe even if he does come in, it's just Ukraine. We'll try and calm things down a bit. And the thing that convinced the world more than just about anything else was all of you, was Ukrainians themselves, standing with such strength and such courage in the face of this overwhelming adversary, inspiring us all and reminding us all that this is not just a fight for Ukraine. It is a fight for the integrity, the sovereignty, and the capacity of people everywhere to pick the path they want for their future. That is why we are here. It is Ukraine's misfortune that Vladimir Putin chose Ukraine to start this, but it is the world's good fortune that Ukrainians are courageous lions in standing up against him and reminding us what we all need to do. So Canada stands with Ukraine. The world stands with Ukraine. Because this is a moment to show that we are willing to fight for the values and the principles we believe in with the best tools at our disposal. The rapid collapse of the Russian economy, the united condemnation and pushback from countries around the world, and the support for Ukraine will continue as long as it takes. Je pourrais en dire bien plus, mais sachez qu'on va être là pour vous soutenir, on va être là pour vous appuyer, on va être là pour le peuple ukrainien aussi longtemps que ça prendra. I'm looking forward to coming around and saying hi to as many of you as I possibly can, so I will cut off my speech here, but just say thank you for your strength. We are with you in your grief and in your courage. Slava Ukraini!